How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all having a good day. We're going to start this video off by giving something away, so if you had left a comment in the previous video, you'll already be entered here. This is the YouTube random comment picker that's just going to pick a random one of them, and it looks like there were 34 different people who left comments. While we're waiting, I'm going to put up the definition of 10-footer in case we have any new people joining us today. It's really just a trash game that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. So Burly Men Gaming, if you're watching this, just send me a message to gettingyournerdon13@gmail.com and I will send you something in the mail. And with that being done, let's start the video. Alright, so first up we have a package from eBay. Now this guy was clearancing out his entire eBay store, so all of his stuff was 50% off, and there was also a 10% or 15% off your entire purchase coupon that was active. So this box came to about $25 shipped, and there are 2 games in here and 1 accessory. Now the guy could have packaged everything a little nicer in here, but he did do the job, and he wasn't really making much money off the sale in general, so I understand why he just threw everything in here. First up here we have a complete in box N64 game, or what should be complete in box. I'm not exactly sure, we're going to have to take a look. The box here is a little worse for wear, but for the price I paid, I'm totally fine with that. I don't have many complete in box N64 games, maybe at most I have 15 of them, so it's going to be nice to add this to the collection. Now War Gods is a game that was universally panned. It flopped real hard. It's actually one of the cheapest N64 games. In the previous video when we went to the pawn shop, there was a copy there for $3, and if I didn't already have this one coming in the mail, I would have picked up that one. And again, the box isn't in great shape, but you can flatten it out with some heavy books and put it in a box protector and it'll look just fine. And next up we have the Midway warranty registration and free drawing, so if you send this in you have a chance of winning any Midway game of your choice. Next we have the Nintendo Power subscription pamphlet. Now if you subscribe to these, they would normally give you a free strategy guide. This one here is for Super Mario 64. Going back and reading old Nintendo Powers is actually really awesome. The articles in there are cool and they cover tons and tons of games. Now here's the instruction booklet for War Gods. Now even if this game sucks, the presentation of this stuff is great. It's full color. I mean, look at that face right there. I mean, just look at that face. Honestly, old games, they had a lot of stuff. They were just very interesting, reading all this stuff, learning all this stuff that now you kind of have to search the internet for. And really, it was just a different time back then. And now here we have the Precautions Booklet. Boring, nobody ever reads those things. Now some N64 boxes came with the cart holder built into it, and some of them had the inserts like this, like Super Nintendo games had. And then here's the cart. It's in great shape. The person who owned this probably didn't play it that often. Again, it's not that good of a game. It failed pretty much everywhere, but it's in great shape. $10 for this was a steal. I'm very happy to add this to my N64 collection. War Gods was developed by Midway and released in 1996 for arcades and in 1997 for PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and PC. The game is a one-on-one 3D fighting game where you fight as one of 10 playable War Gods. A War God is a human who came into contact with a special piece of ore and then transformed into a super evolved warrior. You are fighting to gather all 10 pieces of ore and become the most powerful warrior on Earth. War Gods boasts true 3D environments, 10-hit combos, and fatalities. Even though the game tried to follow the likeness and success of Mortal Kombat, it flopped on all platforms. So as you guys know, I'm working on finishing up my shoot 'em up collection for the Sega Genesis, and this is a game I didn't even know about until I made my checklist of which games I still needed for the set. This is in Sector X. I never hear anybody ever talk about this game. It's actually a port from an arcade game. Well, it's an updated port. We'll take a look at that in a minute. This game is actually great, and the art direction is very insect-based, which really reminds me of Cybercore on the TurboGrafx 16, which is one of my favorite shmups on that console. Sector X was developed by Hot B and released in 1989 for arcades and Sega Genesis and in 1990 for the Famicom. The game is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up where you are fighting against giant mechanized insects. Throughout the levels you'll find speed power-ups, special weapons, as well as single and double weapon power-ups. The Famicom release is the direct home port of the arcade game, however the Genesis release is an oddball version due to having substantial changes from the arcade, including a different soundtrack and completely changed sprites to look more realistic. Let's take a look at the comparison now. And the last thing in the box is the accessory that I was talking about. Here's a brand new in-box Dreamcast Vmu. This is the transparent green one. Now I do have a white one, a black one, and a blue one I believe, but at this price there's no way I could pass it up. I did actually take this out of the box, and although it is kind of damaged on the outside, it is brand new on the inside. It looks like it's never been touched. It actually looks really great when you have a VMU and its matching controller too. And that was what was in the $25 eBay package. All that's left on the bottom of this thing is peanuts. Next up here we have a Craigslist ad for Super Tennis. No, not that Super Tennis, the other Super Tennis. All he says here is that it comes with the paperwork. This ad was up for months. I had sent this guy an email at one point, he never responded. I sent him a text at one point, he never responded. So I finally called him to ask him if he had it, and he said he did. And he said it actually was complete. Now, the guy did have it listed here for 15. I offered him 7 only because it had been up for so long. He said he wanted 10. I said let's meet in the middle at 850. He said yeah, that's fine. He actually lived pretty close to me. I just drove right over and picked it up. Now this is actually in beautiful shape. This game isn't that great, but it is a Master System game that I didn't have, and anytime there's a Master System game that I don't have that I can get for the right price, I'm going to jump at it. I kind of fell into a Master System collection a couple years ago, and ever since then I've just been picking them up whenever I see them. Now this even comes with the card sleeve. I don't know if anyone even played this game. It's really clean, and yeah, some games did come in this card, kind of like the TurboGrafx games did. And that technology is still mind-blowing to me how it even works, especially in 1986. Now, I don't really know anything about any sport, and I don't really play any sports games, but I'm fine with owning and playing old-school sports games like this, and the ones I like even more than this are the arcade-style sports games. I'm actually a big fan of those. But even if I was hanging out with someone and they said they wanted to play a tennis game, this isn't the game that I would grab, because that would be either Mario Tennis or Hard Hitter Tennis. Not to be confused with Super Tennis, released in 1991 exclusively for the Super Nintendo, this Super Tennis was developed by Sega and released in 1986 exclusively for the Sega Master System. The game is a bare-bones home version of tennis, but it does allow you to play singles or doubles, pick your speed, control, and player, and adjust the difficulty. Some Master System games were made on cartridges and some on the Sega card, depending on where in the world they were released. Super Tennis was originally titled Great Tennis in Japan to fit in the Sega Great Sports series, however it was changed to Super Tennis for all international releases. So here's a pawn shop that specializes in TVs and music equipment and cameras and stuff like that, but they also have a ton of video games here, and they're all buy two get one free. Here's the PS3 section. This is God of War Ascension. Now if you look at that label, I'll explain how that price tag works after the live hunting footage. There's also some PS2 games down there. What do we got? Some 10-footer sports games over there. There's Watch Dogs down there, and it has the blue label. So PS3 spine labels actually had 3 different varieties. The original one, which was the Spider-Man 3 font, then there was the black one, and then they ended up with that blue one. Here's the 360 section. This is the premium version of Bioshock Infinite. I'm a huge Bioshock fan, but I actually never played Infinite, so I guess I don't know how big of a Bioshock fan I actually am. But this one came with like an art book and a soundtrack and like a minifigure and stuff like that. $20 is probably a pretty good deal for that, especially with the buy two get one free. What other stuff we got here? We got Max Payne, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. There's Homefront, Halo, Tomb Raider. There's Alias, and Alias is a show about a spy.
Alias is a show about a spy.
What else we got here? Great Golf, or what does that say? Or what is it? Outlaw Golf. Max Payne 3. Sorry, that's Max Payne 2. What is wrong with me right now? Here's some PS4 stuff. Dragon Ball. There is Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, which is a fine game, but it's just such a small thing that it's not worth the original $30. If you can get that game for a couple bucks, it's definitely worth a playthrough. It won't take very long. There's Deadpool. More Dragon Ball Z. There's Minecraft. Some more 10-footer sports games. There's Prey 2, I believe. Here's the Wii U section and Wii section. Now there is so much trash on the Wii. I mean, look at this. This is literally 10-footer city population me. They got Brave up in there, Space Camp, I Spy, Minute to Win It, Happy Feet. What else we got over here? Pets. But right now really is prime time to buy Wii games. They're really just dirt cheap. And they have a great selection here. Here's Mario Kart. And this game is actually probably one of the most difficult of the entire series. $24. I mean, again, that's not bad. That's probably under what it normally goes for, but with the buy two get one, it's even better. And this stuff's all in pretty damn good shape. Even the trash like Happy Feet and Turbo Racing. Now here's like the back wall where they have consoles, and there's some Joy-Cons up there. There's a Switch in there. What else we got over here? There's a projector over there. There's brand new PS4 controllers. I do need to pick up that PS4 remote. I do have the one for the PS3, and I absolutely love it. The actual like television remote. It's only $15 brand new. There's an iToy in there. There's a new Xbox One over there. There is a GameCube up on the top shelf. Now here's the retro stuff. They just have a handful of old games like some NES, some N64 games down here. Here's some Super Nintendo and Atari below that. Now these N64 controllers are knockoffs, so just know how to identify them before you pick them up. It just doesn't have the Nintendo branding on it, which is fine. It doesn't mean the controller is trash, but just know that you're not getting an official controller, so you shouldn't be paying as much. And this is pretty much their handheld section. Now there were some Game Boy games and loose PSP games with the other retro stuff, but this is primarily where it is. Here we got Deal or No Deal and Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader for the DS. There's Frogger on Super Nintendo. Some PSP movies over here. Here's Monkey Ball 3D, and if you haven't played any of the Monkey Ball games, definitely do yourself a favor and check them out. There's a ton of them and they're all great. There's also some 2600 games in here. There's Spirit Camera, which is supposed to be a spiritual successor to the Fatal Frame games, except it sucks. Some Game Boys up there, I think that was like a berry pink one. And then some loose DS and 3DS games to round it out. And here's the stuff I ended up grabbing at the pawn shop. The first is an official Wii Classic controller that they had marked at $5. For that price and in this condition, I wasn't going to leave it behind. I was hoping that the clerk would have left all the stickers on so I could have showed you guys firsthand, but when I got home I realized she had peeled them all off when I wasn't paying attention. But this is what the sticker looks like. The bottom shows the date where the game was actually put on the shelf, and the top shows the original price of it. Now in this example, if the game's still there in May, it drops down to $16. If it's still there in July, it drops down to $14. If it's still there in September, it drops down to $12. And if it's still there in November, it drops down to $10. All the games in the store, no matter when they were put on the shelf, are buy two get one free, and any game that is $10 or less is buy one get one free. Here's a game that I didn't have that had been kicking around for the better part of a year. This is Mutant Chronicles Doom Troopers for the Super Nintendo. Now this game started off as $20 and made its way all the way down to $10, so it did qualify for the buy one get one free. And overall this game is in pretty nice and pretty clean condition. I love how the warranty sticker back here got cut wrong and it says "Don't pee for warranty." I don't know anything about the source material for this game, but it's always nice to be able to add a new Super Nintendo game to the collection, especially at $5 and one that's a cooperative side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. Mutant Chronicles Doom Troopers was developed by Adrenaline Entertainment and released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. It's based on the 1993 pencil and paper role-playing game called Mutant Chronicles that's still going today. The game is a steampunk-inspired side-scrolling run-and-gun platformer that spans 8 levels. You can pick from 2 characters, Mitch or Max, and shoot your way through the game in single-player or 2-player co-op. Doom Troopers uses a 3D graphical style in the same vein as Rare's Donkey Kong Country series. And the last thing I grabbed at the pawn shop was this DS game called Taos Adventure Curse of the Demon Seal. It's a Konami game, but it's one that you never ever hear anybody talk about. They had this marked at $10, but because of that nice buy one get one for games that were 10 and under, it came down to $5. And the reason I've been looking for this game is because I actually found the case at the flea market last year. This one vendor had a couple cases that they were just selling for $1 a piece, so this is one I picked up because it looked interesting, but it's a game I never heard of, and it's one I haven't seen, and I've been actively trying to complete this, or at least semi-complete it, because it doesn't have the manual. But I mean, the art looks great. I have no clue if this game is any good, and it's one, again, you just don't ever hear about. Complete DS games are only getting harder to find, so when you can pick up the manual and case and then try to pair it up with the game, that's really the way to go. And because all the stickers got peeled off, here's a receipt showing what everything costs at the end. At the top you can see Doom Troopers there for $10, the Wii controllers in the middle for $5, and then Taos Adventures on the bottom for $0. And for the last stop of the video, we're going to check out this local game store. On the top here we have DS games, on the bottom we have some PSP. If you're ever going to collect for the PSP, now is probably the time. Here's Grip Shift. To the left of that we have Secret Agent Clank. To the left of that we have NBA Street. And to the left of that there's Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I don't think there's any real order to the games in this store. PSP and Wii are like on a race to the bottom, to hit rock bottom price-wise. Here's Coded Arms, and it's only going to go back up at some point. So if you have any intention of collecting for the PSP, grab the stuff while you find it low. There's just tons of games. Like, look at this game, The Hustle Detroit Streets. You probably never even heard of that game, and it's probably not in anything else. There's The Golden Compass and Killzone. Below that we got Family Guy. Here's Tenchu Shadow Assassins. Now I was going to pick this game up, but it was a little too expensive for me. It was $17.99. So I'll keep my eyes open for it, and when I find it at a pretty decent price, I'll pick it up. There's Pursuit Force. Is that Extreme Justice, I think? And back up here we have Every Extra Extend and Lumines 2, which are 2 games that we saw at the consignment store a couple videos ago. There's also N Plus and 300. Now here's a display case for more expensive PS1 and PS2 games. What do we have here? Bloody Roar 2. There's the Dino Crisis games. There's a Doom game. Here's Lunar. There's a Street Fighter game. The Suikoden games. Haunting Ground is in there. There's just tons of great games, and PS1 and PS2 are only on the rise right now. Now here's this display case with some Dreamcast stuff in there. This isn't just like expensive stuff though, because if you look in the PS2 stacks, there's that PopCap game, which is like $1 game. And then here we have some PS1 games. There's long box stuff and then jewel case stuff. Now all these local game stores are going to be selling their stuff for probably at eBay or above, because they do have to pay for the place that they store all this stuff. The way I do things when I'm going to local game stores is I don't really have any one thing in mind. I'm going there just completely open, and if there's something I find that is priced too low or just has an old price tag on it, or it's something that I've just been looking for I don't ever see that's at a good price, I'll pick it up here. But I'm not ever going for like one specific thing. And then here's the PS2 stuff. Again, the PS1 and the PS2 libraries are just gigantic. There's so many games. There's 24 the game. There's Alias again. Aqua. There's Aqua Teen Hunger Force Ninja Pro-Am. Killzone. There's a copy of one of my favorite games of all time, Manhunt. There's a Resident Evil Code Veronica, Ratchet and Clank, Thrillville, Tarzan, and there's just more. Like PS1 and PS2 libraries are literally endless. You could never play every game on it if you even tried. And then here's some disc-only stuff. The first thing here is Baldur's Gate 2 for the Xbox. What else we got? There's some Wii Lego games, and up here we have some more interesting stuff. Here's some Sega CD games. It's not the biggest selection, but these are the types of games that you just don't see that often. First up is Chuck Rock, and I can't read what that other one is. Here's Tomcat Alley. It actually comes with its manual. And now Sega CD stuff has just shot up through the roof over the past couple years. Here's Lethal Enforcers, Sewer Shark, and then we got Sylphied, which is actually a very cool game. And then some Saturn stuff, and Saturn stuff has been expensive for just a long time. Slam Jam, Virtua Fighter, Worldwide Soccer. There's a copy of Crazy Taxi up there for the Dreamcast, which is a must-have for any collection. What do we got here? Some Sega sports games. Oh, there's College Slam, which is the college version of NBA Jam. Here's Virtua Fighter 2, and something else, I can't read it. Oh, F1 Challenge is in the front there. It comes with its manual. There's Revolution X, which is that Aerosmith light gun game. And then Baku Baku, which is a game I actually need, but I'm going to pick it up when it's complete. And here's some Master System stuff here, some Dreamcast stuff. And then some complete Saturn and Sega CD games. Now, none of this stuff is crazy, you know? I mean, most of these places are picked through. And if there's anything that's even a remotely good deal, it's gone. There's NBA Jam for the 32X. Now, watch out if you buy that game. There's tons of carts that just don't work. And then here's some complete in-box Genesis stuff, Lotus 2, Balls. There's a copy of Shaq Fu over there. And this is what you get because all the desirable stuff goes out so much faster than it comes in that you just get left with this huge overabundance of sports games. Not to mention people don't have to haul their stuff down to the game so they can sell it right at a yard sale or they can go right on Craigslist or eBay, and it's probably just a lot more convenient for them. Here's a copy of Gadget Twins, which is cool. I believe it was $9.99, but I think you can get that for just about that price complete online. Here's some boxed NES stuff and some carts, but it looks like there's a bunch of the same titles down here. There's Ice Hockey, Silent Service, and Casino Kid. Can't read a lot of those actually. Gyromite, there's probably 10 of those. There are some Super Nintendo and N64 games in the box. PTO, there's Duke Nukem up there. There's Alfred Chicken, Buster Bust Loose, and Draken. Mario's Time Machine, Wizardry. Now a lot of Super Nintendo and regular Nintendo games are coming down in price, while other things like N64 and GameCube are going up in price. Here's a copy of Alien 3 with a messed up label for $10. Now I'm still on my huge Alien 3 kick, so I'm definitely going to pick this up because this is a different game than the Genesis version. There's Eye of the Beholder. What else do we got here? There's the Super Nintendo version of Revolution X. There's a wrestling game, Monopoly, Tecmo Super Bowl. Jurassic Park is over there, Wheel of Fortune. Now here's some Wii stuff. Just like the Switch is now, the Wii was just a dumping ground for 10-footers and shovelware. Guilty Party's there, which is a cool game you should pick up if you're collecting for the Wii. There's some Wii U stuff, some GameCube stuff, American Chopper, The Sum of All Fears. There's a lot of weird games on the GameCube, honestly. There's Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 3. And lastly, we have some handheld stuff. Here's some Game Gear games, Paperboy 2, Columns. I'm really not a big fan of Columns. Tetris is a billion times better. Here's Aladdin, Sonic 2, Power Rangers movie game, which is pretty cool. Here's the cleaning kit. Here's Aladdin. There's Bart vs. the Space Mutants, which is a game that still just pisses me off to this day. I had it back in the day for the Genesis. There's a baseball game, George Foreman's KO, Mean Bean Machine, which is always great. It's pretty much the first American version of Puyo, but it's not even pretty much. It is, I think, the first American version of Puyo. Another baseball game, Sonic 2. There's The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Here's some box stuff. There's a Lion King. There's a Blackjack game. Caesar's Palace. I loved collecting for the Game Gear when I was doing it. There's Chess Master. Here's Alien 3. I almost picked this up. It was $17.99. I think this is the PAL version, but the Game Gear might be region free. I really can't remember off the top of my head. Honestly, it wasn't in bad shape, but it was taped shut. That's why I didn't open it. It's not sealed. It was just taped shut. Now here's the Game Boy Advance stuff. So while I was here, all the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy games, the ones that did not have prices on them were 3 for $5, and that's what we'll see later. I did pick up 3 games. There's Narnia, Tony Hawk, Chicken Little, there's Shrek 2. There's some Crash games. The Game Boy Advance is one of my favorite consoles of all time. You guys probably know that. I've probably said it a billion times. I love it. There are just so many games on it and so many great ones. It's literally a pocket Super Nintendo, and it's great. A lot of the RPGs on there are just top notch, and they're only going to go up in price. What do we got here? There's Frogger for the Game Boy Color. Might and Magic, is that what that is? Defender, Tony Hawk 3. There's 102 Dalmatians. There's Harry Potter and the original Tony Hawk that we looked at a couple videos ago. There's Barbie's Pet Rescue. I actually beat that game. Spoiler alert, it sucks. There's a Buffy game. I do want to pick that up at some point. What else do we have? There's a Winnie the Pooh game. There's a copy of Austin Powers, and that game was actually published by Rockstar. There's the Mary-Kate and Ashley games, The Bug's Life, Madden. And then the OG Game Boy stuff, there's F1 Race, Golf, there's the Incredible Crash Dummies, Faceball, the Page Master, Tasmania 2, Tennis, Wave Race is in there, there's Hercules, Lion King, WWF, there's Tiny Toons, there's Looney Tunes. The Game Boy just had tons and tons of licensed games. There's SpongeBob. And this is what I ended up picking up at the local game store. Here's Space Bust the Move. Now, I do like this game, but I don't exactly love it. I could go either way on it, really. I prefer Puzzle de Pone, but I do love Bub and Bob from the Bubble Bobble series, one of my absolute favorite series of games ever made. And for $4.99, complete and in great shape, I wasn't going to leave this behind. And now here are the 3 Game Boy games. Again, these were 3 for $5 because they didn't have a price on them, which is an absolute steal. It's just over $1.50 a game. That's honestly just giving these away. And this is a game that, yet again, I've never heard of, I've never seen, you just don't hear people talk about. This is Yogi Bear's Gold Rush. There is writing and stuff on the cart and stickers, but I'm totally okay with that, especially for the price. And then here's the business card for the store, Bizarre Game Trading. If you're ever around, go check them out. Yogi Bear's Gold Rush was published by Game Tech and released in 1994 exclusively for the Game Boy. It was released alongside its Super Nintendo counterpart, Adventures of Yogi Bear. The game is a side-scrolling platformer that feels very similar to a Super Mario Bros. Game without the power-ups. You even have to collect 100 picnic baskets to earn an extra life. Evil Jake has stolen all of the Jellystone Park's funds, and Yogi has to collect 12 gold bars to stop the park from shutting down. Gold Rush has 6 game sections that include an enchanted forest, city streets, an underground cave, and an old western town. Next is a Game Boy Color game based on Spider-Man, and there are just so many licensed games for the Game Boy Color, and the Game Boy Advance. I don't mean that to be entirely negative. I mean, they're definitely good licensed games. There's also a ton of really bad ones too, but I mean, look at that label. Look how clean that is. It looks like no one has ever even played this game. Spider-Man was developed by Vicarious Visions and released in 2000 exclusively for the Game Boy Color. That same year, Neversoft released it on the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. The game has Spider-Man wall climbing and web slinging around New York, beating up criminals and fighting bosses. You will also fight famous Spider-Man enemies like Venom, Carnage, and Rhino. The game controls smoothly despite only having a few buttons to work with. Because of this, some abilities like the web shot require multiple buttons to perform. The Game Boy Color and PlayStation both received their own sequels in 2001. And the final game I picked up in the 3 for $5 was Tasmania. Now, I do remember playing this game when I was really young on the Super Nintendo, but I don't think I ever actually played the Game Boy version of this game. And this is a Sunsoft game, and that's another thing that pushed me to pick it up. I almost grabbed Tasmania 2, but I was reading reviews while I was in there, and people said it just wasn't as good as the first one, so I picked this one up instead of the second one. Tasmania was published by Sunsoft and released in 1994 exclusively for the Game Boy. The title was released on multiple other consoles, however they are all different games developed by a handful of different companies. Tasmania is a side-scrolling platformer that stars Taz from Looney Tunes fame as he escapes from the Acme Zoo and is on a mission to find a new place to live. The game features 5 different islands that you will spin, jump, squash, and ride your way through. Tasmania received a sequel in 1997 exclusively on the Game Boy. And here's all the stuff that we just looked at along with the Yoshi figure that I picked up for my girlfriend there. Last but not least is the Super Nintendo version of Alien 3, and the front label here is pretty much toast, but the end label looks great. The cartridge also cleaned up just fine. I got the marker off the back, and then the board is clean. So for $10 I thought that price was fine. Now this version is completely different from the Genesis version, not just slightly altered. From the ground up, it's a totally different game. Just like the Game Boy version, from the ground up is a totally different game than both of the home console versions, and they're all made by different people. Alien 3 was developed by Bits Software, published by LJN, and released in 1993 exclusively for the Super Nintendo. The title was released on multiple other consoles. They are all different games developed by different companies. The game is based on the 1992 movie of the same name, however it does take liberties from the 1986 prequel Aliens by including its weapons, devices, and sound bites. Alien 3 takes Ellen Ripley through 6 stages where you will not only explore Fury 161 but also take on different missions. The missions include clearing rooms of eggs, welding doors shut, sealing pipe leaks, fixing fuse boxes, and retrieving objects. The NES version of the game is known to have an ending that does not line up properly with the movie's ending, however the Super Nintendo version does include the same ending as the film. Well, that's all the stuff I picked up over the past couple weeks. What have you picked up or what have you been playing? Thank you very much for watching, and as always, stay nerdy.
Getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on.
I got a raging nerd on.